Cop laughs at black girl for saying her mom's a federal judge until she walks onto the scene. Maya had just finished her classes for the day and was heading home. She was a bright 15-year-old girl, always carrying books in her backpack, and a smile on her face. It was a warm afternoon, and the streets were busy with people going about their daily routines. Maya wasn't used to being out this late, but her mom, Judge Jessica Daniels, had stayed late at work, and she was supposed to meet her at the corner near their house. Maya didn't mind the walk. It was only a few blocks, and she had gotten used to walking on her own after school. The sun was still out, but the evening air had started to cool down, making the journey a little more refreshing. She couldn't wait to see her mom, even though she wasn't sure what time she would get home. Her mother had always been busy with work, but Maya loved the times they had together. They would often sit at the kitchen table, talking about their day while Maya's mom sipped her tea and listened carefully. As she walked down the familiar street, Maya's thoughts drifted from school to her mom's job. She admired her mother more than anything. Being a federal judge meant a lot of hard work, a lot of responsibility, and sometimes, a lot of waiting. People didn't always understand how much time it took, and how much pressure came with the job. But her mom never complained. Maya knew that her mother helped a lot of people, and sometimes, those people's lives were changed forever by her decisions. Maya was walking past a small park when she saw a police car parked along the side of the road. She thought nothing of it at first, but as she got closer, she noticed the officer sitting in his car, staring straight ahead. It wasn't unusual to see police officers on the streets, especially around this area. They often kept an eye out for any problems or potential issues. However, as Maya passed the car, the officer suddenly stepped out. He looked at her with a curious gaze, and without any warning, he called out to her. "Hey, you there. Come over here for a second," he said. Maya paused, her heart skipping a beat. She wasn't sure what was going on but decided it was best to listen. She walked over to the officer, who was now standing with his hands on his hips. He looked older, probably in his mid-40s, with a stern expression on his face. His uniform was crisp, but something about his attitude made Maya feel uneasy. She was used to seeing officers around town, but this one had an air of authority that made her feel small. "Where are you heading, young lady?" he asked, his voice not unkind but firm. "I'm just heading home," Maya replied, her voice a little quieter than usual. "My mom's waiting for me." The officer raised an eyebrow, clearly surprised by her response. "And where exactly is home for you?" Maya hesitated for a moment. "Just a few blocks away. I live with my mom. We live on Oak Street." The officer said, as if trying to decide whether or not to believe her. "I'm sure it's nothing, but you're out here alone. Shouldn't you be with an adult?" Maya nodded quickly. "My mom's a judge. She's working late. She'll be here soon." At those words, the officer's face changed slightly. A small chuckle escaped his lips, and Maya's stomach tightened. "Your mom's a judge." He seemed amused by the idea. "A judge, huh? Are you sure about that?" Maya frowned, sensing the officer didn't believe her. She knew she couldn't just walk away now, so she stood her ground. "Yes, I'm sure. She's a federal judge. She's working right now, and I'm just heading home." The officer laughed again, shaking his head as if she had just told a ridiculous joke. "Right. A federal judge, huh? What's her name? I'm sure a big-time judge would have some paperwork for me to look at." Maya's cheeks flushed with a mix of embarrassment and frustration. Why was he mocking her? She could feel his eyes sizing her up, looking for some reason to doubt her. She had heard people make assumptions about her before because of the way she looked, but this felt different. This felt like he was testing her. "Her name is Judge Jessica Daniels," Maya said, trying to keep her voice steady. She's a well-known judge. She's worked on big cases. The officer crossed his arms, still not convinced. Big cases, huh? Well, I don't see any big-time judge here with you. I see a little girl just trying to make up a story to get out of trouble. I'm not buying it, kid. Maya bit her lip. This wasn't going the way she had hoped. She had never expected to be treated like this, especially not by someone in a position of authority. She wanted to tell him more, to explain that her mom was really important and that she didn't need to lie, but she knew arguing wouldn't help. Instead, she decided to stay calm, hoping the officer would just let her go. I'm really just heading home, Maya said again, her voice a little more firm now. I don't know what else to say. The officer seemed to notice her frustration, but it didn't stop him from pressing further. Well, we'll just see about that. You stay right here while I check your story, he said, pulling out his radio and calling something in. Maya stood there, unsure what would happen next. She tried to keep her composure, but her heart was racing. She couldn't believe this was happening. All she wanted was to go home and be with her mom. She glanced down the street, hoping to see her mother's car pull up, but there was nothing. The officer was busy talking into his radio, seemingly not paying attention to her anymore, but Maya still felt the weight of his words. She had been telling the truth, but it seemed like he was just going to keep doubting her. As she stood there waiting, she couldn't shake the feeling that something was wrong. Why was he so focused on questioning her, when she hadn't done anything wrong? Her mom had always taught her to be proud of who she was and where she came from. But right now, she felt like her pride was slipping away. She stood there, trying to keep herself together, wondering what her mom would think if she could see this. Maya stood by the side of the road, feeling a cold shiver run down her spine as she waited for the officer to finish his call. She glanced nervously at the police car, wishing her mom would show up any moment. The officer had told her to stay put, but she couldn't shake off the unease creeping up inside her. It wasn't just the fact that he was questioning her, it was the way he treated her, like her words didn't matter, like she was a liar for something as simple as mentioning her mother's job. She could feel her heart pounding in her chest as the seconds dragged on. Her palms were sweaty, and she couldn't help but tug nervously at her jacket sleeve. She had tried to stay calm, but the officer's mocking tone, the way he laughed at her, it stung. Maya knew deep down that this wasn't about her telling a story. It was about him making assumptions based on her appearance. She had seen it happen before, though usually, it was in smaller moments, people looking at her differently or whispering behind her back. But this time, it felt different. She felt small, as if the officer was trying to strip her of everything she was proud of, her family, her mom, her identity. Maya took a deep breath, reminding herself that she didn't have to explain herself to anyone. She was proud of her mom. Judge Jessica Daniels wasn't just any judge, she had earned her position through years of hard work and dedication. She had put herself through law school, worked countless long hours, and made sacrifices to get to where she was. But Maya knew that none of that mattered to the officer standing in front of her. To him, she was just a teenager with a story that didn't add up. The officer was still on his radio, speaking in clipped tones. Maya couldn't make out exactly what he was saying, but it didn't matter. She was just a little girl in his eyes, someone he thought he could dismiss because of the way she looked. A few more moments passed in silence, and Maya glanced around, trying to distract herself. She had walked this path many times before, and yet, today, everything felt different. She didn't like feeling this way, vulnerable, questioned, and uncertain. She kept thinking about her mom and how proud she would be of her if she knew how hard Maya was trying to keep it together in front of this officer. Her mom had always told her to hold her head high, to never let anyone make her feel inferior. But right now, Maya was struggling. She stared down at her shoes, the small steps she had taken feeling insignificant. She thought back to the times when she had watched her mom stand tall in a courtroom, commanding attention without even raising her voice. Maya admired that about her mom, how she made everyone around her listen, how she made people respect her without asking for it. Maya wanted to be like that, too. But today, standing alone on the sidewalk, she felt anything but respected. The officer's voice broke her thoughts. "All right, kid. You can go now," he said, a little more casually than before. But his words felt empty, like they didn't carry any real apology or understanding. Maya's eyes flicked up, surprised by the sudden change in his tone. He was no longer mocking her. In fact, he seemed almost sheepish, his earlier bravado slipping away. Maya didn't know what had changed, whether it was the call he had just made or the realization that she wasn't just some random teenager, but she wasn't about to let him off that easily. She took a deep breath, standing up straighter. "Thank you," she said, her voice steady, but there was something else behind it, a quiet strength that had begun to form in her over the last few minutes. "But I didn't do anything wrong. You should have trusted me from the beginning." The officer's face flickered with a hint of discomfort, but he didn't respond. He just nodded, almost apologetically. It was clear that Maya's words had struck him, but it wasn't enough for her. She wasn't looking for an apology, she was looking for something more, something that would let her feel like she wasn't invisible. She stood there, hoping for some kind of acknowledgement, but the officer just turned back toward his car. He muttered something under his breath that Maya didn't quite catch, but the words weren't important. They were meaningless now. She wasn't going to let this moment define her. But before she could take another step, something unexpected happened. A car pulled up beside them, a black sedan that Maya recognized immediately. Her heart lifted. It was her mom's car. The windows rolled down, and the figure in the driver's seat was unmistakable. It was Judge Jessica Daniels, Maya's mother. Maya's eyes widened with relief, but she didn't let herself smile just yet. She knew this moment would be the one that changed everything. The officer, who had been standing with his back to the road, didn't notice the car pulling up. But Maya did. She watched as her mom calmly parked and stepped out of the car, her heels clicking against the pavement with the kind of confident stride that only someone who knew their worth could have. Judge Daniels wasn't just any woman, she was a force to be reckoned with. And Maya couldn't help but feel a surge of pride as she watched her mother approach. Maya's mom, dressed in a sleek black suit, exuded authority. Her presence was commanding, and Maya felt it in her bones. She knew her mother wasn't the kind of person who would let anything slide. Maya had seen her mom in the courtroom, where she commanded respect from everyone, from the highest-ranking officials to the defendants she had to rule over. Maya had always admired that about her mom, the way she never backed down, no matter the situation. And now, Maya knew that this was one of those moments. The officer turned just as Judge Daniels reached them. He looked at her with a mixture of surprise and uncertainty, his face betraying the confusion he felt. He didn't expect this. He didn't expect Maya's mom to show up. And now that she was here, Maya could see that he was taken aback, unsure of how to proceed. Judge Daniels didn't waste any time. She didn't need to introduce herself, didn't need to explain who she was. Her presence was enough. She looked at the officer with a calm but firm expression, her eyes never leaving his face. "Is there a problem here, officer?" she asked, her voice steady and clear, like she was used to addressing people with respect and authority. The officer blinked, momentarily stunned, and then stammered, "No, ma'am. I was just..." Maya's mom didn't let him finish. "You were just questioning my daughter, correct?" she asked, her tone more serious now. The officer nodded, his earlier arrogance gone, replaced by a visible discomfort. "Yes, ma'am. But I didn't know. I didn't know she's my daughter," Judge Daniels interrupted smoothly, cutting him off. "And I expect you to treat her with the same respect you would give anyone else." Her voice didn't rise, but there was a quiet power in it that made the officer look down, unsure of what to say next. Maya felt her stomach relax a little, watching her mom handle the situation effortlessly. She didn't need to explain herself. Maya's mom was the one who would set things right. Maya stood quietly beside her mother, her nerves slowly beginning to settle as she watched Judge Daniels stand tall in front of the officer. For the first time in the last few minutes, she felt a sense of relief wash over her. The weight of the officer's judgment, the harshness of his words, seemed to vanish the moment her mother arrived. Judge Daniels had always been a calm, composed presence in Maya's life, but seeing her in action now, standing up for her with quiet strength, made Maya realize just how much power her mother truly had. Maya's heart swelled with pride as her mother faced the officer. She had never seen her mom look so sure of herself, so confident. Maya had always known that her mom was someone important. Her work as a federal judge wasn't something anyone could easily dismiss. But now, standing beside her mother, Maya could feel the power of her words and the authority that came with them. It wasn't just her mother's job that made her powerful. It was who she was, her ability to command respect without even raising her voice. It was in the way she carried herself, in the way she spoke, and in the way she handled moments like this. The officer, still caught off guard, tried to compose himself. He shuffled his feet awkwardly and mumbled, "I wasn't sure, ma'am. She said she was your daughter, but I didn't. I mean, I didn't know." Judge Daniels didn't miss a beat. Her voice was steady, her words measured, but there was no mistaking the authority in them. "It doesn't matter if you knew her name or not. What matters is that you show respect to every person, regardless of how they look or how old they are." She paused, letting her words sink in. "My daughter is not someone you should doubt, and she certainly isn't someone you should mock. I expect you to remember that next time you stop someone for no reason." Maya felt a small, quiet smile tug at the corners of her lips. She had always admired how her mom could speak to people, how she could say exactly what needed to be said without making a scene. It was the way she carried herself, the way she treated others, that made her a force to be reckoned with. And now, Maya was seeing that strength in full force. The officer, still standing a few feet away, shifted uncomfortably under Judge Daniels' gaze. He glanced at Maya, then back at her mother, clearly realizing his mistake. He didn't know what to say, and for a moment, the air between them hung heavy with unspoken words. Maya could tell that the officer was embarrassed, and part of her wanted to feel sorry for him. But another part of her felt a quiet sense of satisfaction. He had doubted her, judged her by nothing more than her appearance, and now he was the one who had to face the truth. I didn't mean to offend you," the officer finally muttered, his voice softening. "I just didn't expect." Judge Daniels held up a hand, stopping him before he could continue. "You didn't expect someone like Maya to be related to someone like me, right?" Her tone was calm, but there was an underlying sharpness to her words. She wasn't being rude, but she wasn't letting him off the hook either. "That's the problem, officer. You assumed. You assumed based on how she looks, based on your own biases, and that's something you need to address. We're not in a position to entertain assumptions. Not in my world. Not in Maya's world." The officer didn't argue. He didn't try to defend himself. He simply stood there, his face reddening slightly as he processed the weight of what had just been said. Maya couldn't help but feel a little sorry for him, even though she knew he deserved to be called out. He had made a mistake, and now he had to face the consequences, which weren't as simple as a quick apology. He needed to reflect on his actions, to understand why his behavior had been wrong, and to learn from it. Maya's mom turned her attention back to her daughter, offering her a soft smile. "Are you all right, sweetheart?" she asked, her voice gentle but full of concern. Maya nodded, though she still felt a knot in her stomach. I'm fine, Mom. I didn't expect that to happen. Judge Daniels placed a hand on her daughter's shoulder, giving it a reassuring squeeze. Sometimes people react out of ignorance, Maya. They don't always understand what they're doing. But that's why we speak up. That's why we correct them, so they can learn better for next time. Maya's eyes met her mother's, and for a moment, she felt a deep sense of gratitude. She had always known that her mother was strong, but today, Maya was seeing that strength in action. She was seeing the kind of leadership that came from compassion, the kind of authority that didn't need to be loud or forceful, but firm and unshakable. Judge Daniels had handled this situation with grace, and Maya knew that this was one of the many reasons she admired her mother. The officer, who had been standing off to the side, cleared his throat. I apologize again. I won't make that mistake again, he said, his voice now more respectful, but it was clear he still felt a bit awkward. I'll be on my way now. Judge Daniels didn't respond immediately. She simply nodded, giving him one last look before turning back to Maya. She didn't need to say anything else. The officer had learned his lesson, even if it was a hard one. But Maya knew this encounter would stay with her for a long time. As the officer got into his car and drove away, Maya let out a quiet sigh of relief. She didn't know what to say at first, but she was grateful to be with her mom. Her mom's calm presence had made all the difference. Maya had never been more aware of how important it was to have someone like her in her corner. Judge Daniels wasn't just her mom, she was a role model, someone who stood up for what was right, even when it wasn't easy. Thanks, Mom, Maya said softly, her voice full of emotion. I don't know what I would have done if you hadn't shown up. Judge Daniels smiled, her expression warm and reassuring. You did great, Maya. You didn't back down. You stood your ground, and that's something to be proud of. You handled yourself with more grace than I could have ever expected from someone your age. Maya smiled back, feeling the weight of the day begin to lift. Thanks, Mom. I guess I'm learning from the best. Judge Daniels chuckled softly, her eyes twinkling with pride. You've always had it in you, sweetheart. Now, let's head home. I'm sure you're ready for a rest after all of that. Together, they walked down the street, the noise of the city around them fading as Maya let the events of the day settle into her mind. She knew that she would never forget this moment, the way her mom had stepped in and handled the situation, the way she had stood up for her, not just as a mother, but as someone who believed in fairness and respect. Maya knew she had learned something important today, no matter what others assumed, no matter how they tried to judge her, she had the power to stand up for herself, and she had the right to be heard. This version of Part 3 continues to build on the tension and Maya's personal growth while focusing on Thea's. Maya and her mom walked home side by side, the quiet of the evening seemed to wrap around them, the city sounds fading into the background. Maya could feel the calmness returning to her, but the events of the past few minutes still lingered in her mind. She kept replaying everything: the officer's mocking tone, the way he had doubted her, and the way her mom had stood up for her. It all felt like a whirlwind, and she was still trying to make sense of it all. Her mom, Judge Jessica Daniels, walked beside her, her pace slow and steady, as though she had all the time in the world. Maya could tell she was giving her space to think, but Maya wanted to say something. She needed to talk about what had just happened, to understand it better, to process everything. Mom, Maya began softly, her voice still shaky from the nerves of the encounter, do you think the officer really understood what he did wrong? Judge Daniels didn't respond immediately. She simply glanced down at Maya, her gaze thoughtful. After a moment, she said, I hope so. It's not easy for people to admit when they've made a mistake, especially when they think they're in the right. But that's why we have to speak up when we see things that aren't right. It's the only way people will start to learn. Maya nodded slowly, absorbing her mom's words. She had heard her mom say similar things before, but now, hearing it in this context, it felt different. She understood it more deeply, the weight of the lesson settling into her chest. I guess, Maya said quietly, her gaze focused ahead as they walked. It just felt so unfair. I didn't do anything wrong. I was just telling the truth. Judge Daniels smiled gently, her hand brushing against Maya's. That's the thing, sweetheart. People are so quick to judge others based on assumptions. They don't always take the time to listen, to understand. It's a hard truth to face, but it's one we have to live with. And that's why it's so important for you to speak your truth, to stand up for yourself. Because no one else can do that for you. Only you can make people see you for who you really are. Maya felt the warmth of her mom's words fill her heart. She had always admired her mother's strength and ability to see beyond the surface. It was something Maya had tried to emulate over the years, but today, seeing her mom in action, standing up for her with such authority, had shown her what real strength looked like. It wasn't just about being tough or confident, it was about being true to yourself and not letting anyone define you based on their biases. I'm glad you were there, Maya said, her voice barely above a whisper, but full of emotion. I don't know what I would have done if you hadn't shown up. Judge Daniels gave her a reassuring smile, her eyes softening as she looked down at Maya. I'm always going to be there for you, no matter what. You don't have to face the world alone. We're a team, Maya. And we always will be. Maya smiled back, feeling the bond between them grow even stronger. Her mom's words meant everything to her. Maya knew that she was lucky to have someone like Judge Daniels in her life. Someone who not only believed in her but also showed her how to believe in herself. As they continued walking, the conversation shifted to something lighter, the tension of the encounter gradually fading. Maya told her mom about her day at school, about the small things that had happened, the funny moments with her friends. It was nice to talk about something other than what had just happened. It gave her a chance to breathe, to step away from the heaviness of the situation. But even as they talked, Maya couldn't help but feel a sense of gratitude for what her mom had done for her today. When they reached their home, Maya's thoughts were still a bit jumbled, but she felt a sense of clarity she hadn't had earlier. Her mom had shown her what it meant to stand up for herself, to be proud of who she was, and to never let anyone take that away from her. It wasn't about proving something to others. It was about knowing her worth and demanding the respect she deserved, no matter who tried to take that away. They walked up the front steps, and Maya opened the door, the familiar scent of home welcoming them inside. The house was quiet, but there was warmth in the air, both literal and emotional. Maya could hear the sound of her mom's heels clicking softly on the floor as she entered, and she knew that her mother's presence would always be there, a steady force in her life. Do you want some dinner? Maya asked, looking over her shoulder at her mom. I can make us something. Judge Daniels smiled warmly, her eyes twinkling. I'd love that. You've had a long day, Maya. Let's eat, and then we can relax. Maya headed into the kitchen, her mind still processing everything, but her heart felt lighter. She grabbed a few things to make a simple meal, a little pasta, some vegetables, and a side salad. As she worked, she couldn't stop thinking about what had happened earlier, but instead of feeling upset, she felt stronger. She had been given a powerful lesson today, and it was one that would stay with her for the rest of her life. As the meal began to take shape, Maya's thoughts turned back to the officer. She wondered if he would ever think twice before judging someone based on their appearance again. She hoped so. But even if he didn't, Maya knew that she didn't need him or anyone else to validate her. She had learned today that her worth didn't come from others' approval. It came from within herself. And as long as she stayed true to who she was, no one could ever take that away from her. Maya set the table, a sense of calm settling over her. When Judge Daniels joined her, they sat down to eat, sharing the kind of quiet comfort that only came from moments like this. Maya smiled at her mom, knowing that, no matter what the world threw her way, she would always have the strength to face it, just like her mother had done for her today. This expanded part 4 continues to build on the emotional journey of both Maya and her mom, highlighting the evening passed quietly after dinner. Maya and her mom, Judge Jessica Daniels, sat in the cozy living room, sipping their tea and enjoying the soft warmth of their home. The tension from earlier in the day had settled, but Maya still found herself reflecting on everything that had happened. The officer, her mom's calm strength, and the way her own emotions had shifted throughout the encounter. It all felt like a turning point in her life, a moment that would stay with her forever. Maya was leaning back on the couch, trying to relax, but her mind was buzzing with thoughts. She couldn't help but think about the officer. He had doubted her, questioned her, and made assumptions about who she was. He had treated her as if she was less than. But Maya now understood the importance of standing up for herself, of speaking her truth even when others didn't want to hear it. Her mom had taught her that today. It wasn't just about proving something to others, it was about knowing her own worth and demanding the respect she deserved. "Mom," Maya finally spoke, her voice thoughtful, "do you think people will ever really change? I mean, if they keep making the same mistakes, how do we help them see the truth?" Judge Daniels, who had been reading her case notes while sipping her tea, paused for a moment. She set the papers down and looked over at Maya, her expression soft but serious. "That's a big question, Maya," she said gently. "People can change, but it takes time. It takes self-reflection and sometimes, a little push in the right direction. What we did today, that conversation with the officer, it's part of that change. We can't always expect everyone to get it right away, but we can always try to help them see things differently." Maya nodded, digesting her mom's words. She understood that the world wasn't always fair. There would always be people who made assumptions based on what they saw on the outside. But what mattered, Maya realized, was how she responded to those moments. She couldn't control other people's actions, but she could control how she carried herself, how she stood up for herself, and how she chose to respond to the challenges she faced. "What if we don't change them?" Maya asked quietly. "What if they keep doing the same thing over and over?" Judge Daniels gave her a small smile, her eyes filled with warmth and understanding. "Then we keep doing what we do, Maya. We keep standing up for what's right. We keep teaching and leading by example. We don't have to change the world all at once. But every little bit counts. Every time you speak up, every time you show someone a better way, it adds up. And eventually, it can make a difference." Maya let her mom's words sink in. The officer, she realized, wasn't the enemy. He was simply someone who had been misguided, someone who had let his assumptions cloud his judgment. Maya couldn't change him in a single conversation, but her mom had shown her today that even in the face of ignorance, standing firm, speaking calmly, and demanding respect was the way forward. She looked over at her mom, admiring the quiet strength she exuded. "I want to be like you when I'm older," Maya said softly, a hint of awe in her voice. "The way you handle everything. The way you stay calm but strong. I want to be able to do that, too." Judge Daniels chuckled, a warm, knowing sound. "You already are like me, sweetheart. You just don't realize it yet. You're learning every day, and you're stronger than you think." Maya smiled, feeling a sense of pride well up inside her. She had always admired her mom, but now she understood that she could be like her, too. It wasn't about pretending to be someone she wasn't. It was about being true to herself, about handling life's challenges with grace and strength. And as long as she carried her mom's lessons with her, she knew she could face whatever came her way. As the evening went on, the two of them settled into their usual routine. Maya helped her mom sort through her paperwork, offering a hand whenever needed, and they chatted about the day's events, nothing too serious, just the usual talk about their lives. Maya felt lighter, more at peace than she had earlier in the day. She had a newfound confidence in herself and in her ability to handle difficult situations. "I'm proud of you, Maya," her mom said, her voice warm and genuine. "You showed a lot of strength today. I know it wasn't easy, but you did it. And that's something to be proud of." Maya felt a blush creep up her neck. She hadn't realized how much her mom had noticed until now. "Thanks, Mom. It's just, I never realized how important it is to speak up for yourself. But now I see it. I see how it can make a difference." Judge Daniels nodded, her smile gentle. "It always makes a difference, sweetheart. Even if you don't see it right away. And just remember, no one can ever take away your dignity. You have to hold on to that no matter what." Maya took a deep breath, feeling her confidence grow. She wasn't the same person she had been earlier in the day. She had learned something valuable, something that would stay with her for the rest of her life. She had learned that no matter what others thought of her, she had the power to define herself. She had the power to stand up for herself and demand respect. And if anyone ever doubted her again, she knew she could face it with the strength her mom had shown her. That night, as Maya lay in bed, the events of the day replayed in her mind, but this time, they didn't feel as heavy. She felt proud of herself and proud of her mom. It was a reminder that no matter what life threw at her, she had the strength to face it. Tomorrow would be a new day. And Maya knew she was ready for it.